Coming up on Mountain News this morning, a murder suspect is on the run in Frankfort. We have more on what you need to know about him. And we now know the funeral arrangements for a southern Kentucky couple who died after carbon monoxide poisoning.
Dedicated to eastern and southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News this morning.
Good morning, I'm Olivia Calfee. The time is 6:30 on July 11th. Now let's check in with Chief Forecaster Brandon Robinson for a look at your forecast this morning. But before we do that, Brandon, today is July 11th, which means it's my 1-year anniversary birthday here at WYMT.
It's your 1 year. We're so proud of you.
Yes, I'm just so excited. It's like my happy 1 year to all of Eastern Kentucky. It's our 1 year.
I'll have to get you a cake later on today. It's just like a number one.
Exactly what I was wanting.
Exactly. All right, let's get into the forecast this morning. We're looking a bit on the foggy side in some spots, chilly side in other spots. Fog first, though. Anything less than 5 miles on this map. That's Logan, that's Harlan, that's Middlesboro, that is Williamsburg. You're fogged in for the most part. A blanket of fog over top of Hazard this morning. But again, it's one of those situations that we're going to continue to see. Well, Lake Cumberland went back to sleep on us this morning. Should have checked that before we went on air with it. That's okay. We'll move on to temperatures. 51 Clintwood, 63 Moorhead, Jackson, and Monticello. A lot of 50s out there, including dew points. Look at Clintwood, 45-degree dew point. It's basically a very dry air out there this morning. So again, not too much in the way of high dew points. Humidity level is still up a little bit, but it's very comfortable and even crisp out there this morning. 85 this afternoon. You might need a light jacket this morning, but you'll be able to keep that in the car a little bit later on today. Dew points stay low, which means it's just going to be a warm day, not necessarily a humid and muggy day out there across our region. Olivia?
Thank you, Brandon. The search continues for a missing swimmer in Laurel County. We are told a young man was swimming with his friends and disappeared after jumping in the water at Laurel River Lake on Friday. Search crews were on the water using underwater equipment and divers to search for the swimmer. They have also used a scent searching canine. Police in Laurel County are asking for your help to find another missing man this morning. Gary Bowling was last seen off County Farm Road 2 miles west of London on his way to Laurel Lake. He was driving a silver GMC Canyon truck and was wearing a tan jungle hat, t-shirt, yellow swimming trunks, and black Nike flip-flops. If you have seen him, you were asked to contact the Laurel County Sheriff's Office at 606-864-6600 or 606-878-7000. A golden alert is out in Pulaski County. The Sheriff's Office is looking for 32-year-old Joshua Sims. He has developmental cognitive brain disorder and is a ward of the state. The Sheriff's Office says he was last seen at the Valero station in Rockcastle County at 461 Food Stop. He was last seen wearing a white sleeveless t-shirt, khaki cargo shorts, and a black cap. Authorities say he is a danger to himself and others, particularly children. If you have any information about his whereabouts, you are asked to call state police. A juvenile is charged with murder after a shooting in one southern Kentucky county. State police say the shooting happened Sunday night outside a home on Wagon Ridge Road in McCreary County. They say 36-year-old Robert Lowe Jr. was arguing with another adult when he was shot by a minor. State police arrested the boy and charged him with murder. He is now being held in the Adair County Youth Development Center. Police in Frankfort are on the hunt for a murder suspect they say is likely armed and dangerous. Jeremy Toms talked to police about the incident.
Frankfort police say they're searching for a man named Simeon Johnson. They say he is the prime suspect in connection to a deadly shooting at an apartment complex late Sunday night.
Our dispatch center received a call about 11:30 last night of a shots fired at Hickory Hills Apartments on Marlowe Court.
Assistant Chief Lynn Aubrey says when officers arrived and entered apartment 61 at the complex, they found 50-year-old Thomas Weidman shot and killed. Aubrey could not say what led up to a trigger being pulled, but she says witnesses saw Johnson leaving the apartment with a handgun. Aubrey described the wanted man.
He's a black male, about 5'10", black hair, brown eyes. He was last seen wearing a pink polo with a blue logo on it, black shorts.
The assistant chief says these two did know of each other, so it wasn't a random encounter, but they are still considering Johnson to be armed and dangerous.
We put all our resources right now into locating Mr. Johnson. We expect to have a warrant for homicide very quickly. He does already have 2 outstanding warrants on other issues.
Aubrey asks for anyone that may have information to reach out to their department, and she says because Johnson is considered dangerous, if you see him, do not approach him, but do call 911 to report his whereabouts. In Frankfort, Jeremy Toms, WKYT.
Assistant Chief Aubrey says to reach out to the department if you have any information, and she says because Johnson is considered dangerous, do not approach him if you see him, but do call 911 to report his whereabouts. The Bowling Green Police Department says the officer who was shot last week at a car mart is still being treated for his injuries. After the shooting, Matt Davis was rushed into surgery and was listed in critical but stable condition. Kentucky State Police say the Warren County coroner pronounced a man dead at the medical center in Bowling Green. It is unclear who the man was and how he died. Authorities have released very little information. One person is dead after an officer-involved shooting in northern Kentucky. It happened yesterday on Glenway Avenue in Covington. Police say the responding officer got into a violent struggle with the suspect. One witness says the man tackled the officer and reached for his gun. The officer then shot him. He later died at the hospital. The officer had minor injuries. He has been placed on administrative leave while state police investigate. State and local leaders broke ground on a new law enforcement training center in Richmond, named in honor of fallen Sheriff's Deputy Jody Cash. He died in the line of duty last May and was serving the Callaway County Sheriff's Office. The Jody Cash multipurpose training facility will be more than 42,000 square feet. It will have a 50-yard, 30-lane firing range designed for specialized training. The new center will train law enforcement officers across Kentucky. Construction is expected to be completed in 2025. A special commissioner says a Southern Kentucky Circuit Court clerk should be fired. The Lexington Herald Leader states a report shows Pulaski Circuit Clerk J.S. Flynn failed to report a sexual relationship with an employee and retaliated against her when the relationship ended. It also says he harassed other women at the office. Flynn worked in the office under his grandfather and was appointed when his grandfather resigned. The state Supreme Court will now decide whether to remove Flynn. Flynn has denied most of the allegations against him. Funeral services are now set for a husband and wife found dead in their Southern Kentucky home. Lewis and Carol Catron died Friday. Police say the cause was accidental. Both were very active in their community. Lewis' brother Sam Catron was once the sheriff in Pulaski County and was murdered in April of 2002. WYMT's Phil Pendleton has more on how the couple's death is impacting many.
Numerous first responders were called to Lewis and Carol Catron's home Friday, but the sheriff and his chief deputy also responded, and hearing that both were found dead.
All the evidence points to the fact that it was strictly accidental, that the truck had been just left on.
The truck had been running in the garage, and the sheriff says Catron and his wife were found in the house. This was a difficult call, as Jones has known Lewis and his family for many years.
I told my wife that when I got home, I see these, but it makes it, when it's personal, and this is somebody that I really had a lot of respect for, that it wears on your emotions. It really does.
I spoke with Lewis Catron many times right here at this spot, the spot where his brother Sam Catron was assassinated in April 2002. Lewis Catron was not a sworn law enforcement.
On a regular basis, at least once a week, we'll talk. He's been a part of this department for years. He's very concerned about this department. He loves this department.
Lewis Catron was also involved in the local rescue squad and the fire department and was part owner of Southern Oaks Funeral Home.
You could trust Lewis with anything any task that you gave him, it was going to be done right.
Visitation services for both Lewis and Carol Catron will be at 5 o'clock Wednesday, the funeral at 1 o'clock Thursday. In Pulaski County, Phil Pendleton, WYMT Mountain News.
Lewis Catron also worked for the Kentucky Lottery and Food Fair in Pulaski County. His wife Carol had worked for the Pulaski County School System and the Palm Beach Company. Martin County Sheriff John Kirk is asking the fiscal court to intervene with transport problems. The sheriff says the county's paid transport workers who were hired to drive arrested individuals are refusing to meet his deputies in the field to transport individuals upon arrest. Jailer Bill Priest says he is not comfortable placing his workers on the front line, wanting them to meet at the courthouse or somewhere it is safe.
Both of them have points and to talk about, and so I suspect if they continue to talk that it should be able to be fixed, because again, I think it's a problem of simply getting people transported from the scene of the arrest to the courthouse, and that shouldn't be too big of a fix.
The issue is gaining local attention after a Facebook post by the sheriff last week. Yesterday, a motorcycle crash left one man dead in Knott County. 45-year-old Billy Franks of Whitesburg was pronounced dead at the scene. WYMT's RJ Johnson spoke with Kentucky State Police and has more on why drivers need to stay aware.
Kentucky State Police is offering some tips of advice for motorcyclists and drivers following a crash that left one man dead early Monday morning in Knott County.
Our safety tips and what we encourage people to do start well before the ride does. We encourage everybody to make sure they inspect their bike, make sure it's all in working order, because as the summer months get started, we're going to see an increase in those motorcycles on the roadway, just to make sure we're doing our part to keep those motorcycles safe.
Kentucky State Police Trooper Matt Gayhart says to make sure you are looking for motorcycles and thinking twice before turning into the road.
Yeah, we just encourage people to make sure that they're looking for motorcycles. Oftentimes we see, obviously we're looking for vehicles, and vehicles are much larger than motorcycles, so sometimes we overlook those motorcycles and don't see them. So I just encourage the public to make sure that they're looking twice, check that intersection twice before you pull out on the roadway.
He says to make sure you are wearing protective and visible clothing, helmets, and other gear.
We want to make sure we're wearing something visible. Majority of our crashes happen when motorcycles just simply not seen, so wearing something that's visible to other motorists can help.
The part of Highway 15 where the crash took place is at the light where ongoing construction is on the bridge, which is why he says you should never try to beat the light.
While this road work is going on, we have to remain patient. Going through the yellow light, trying to speed up and get through it just to save yourself a few seconds off waiting on the opposite cycle can oftentimes spell disaster and cause maybe an accident.
Gayhart says to always pay attention, especially in intersections like this. In Knott County, RJ Johnson, WYMT Mountain News.
Gayhart says the cause of the crash is still being investigated, but says both folks who were driving were wearing helmets. Some people living in Madison County say they're feeling relief after the destruction of chemical weapons at the Bluegrass Army Depot. Officials finished the destruction of 30,000 tons of weapons on Friday. The chemical weapons had been stored in Kentucky since the 1940s. Those we talked to say they had concerns about a chemical spill or accident at the depot.
It's a relief. We haven't seen any negative side effects, felt or heard any side effects. It's quiet most of the time over there. There's been some influx of personnel that move.
We are so relieved. This has been something that's been hanging over our heads my whole life. The scares, sometimes there would be leaks and we would hear about them, and just the fears that we had that something could happen.
Richmond's mayor says the nerve agent destruction process brought in a new Richmond exit off I-75, and that eventually attracted the Buc-ee's Travel Center, which brought in more jobs to the area.
6:44 here on this Tuesday morning. We are looking at Lake Cumberland. Got that camera back online for you, and we're just looking at fog. So it's a dual purpose there to show you that this morning. Some patchy, dense fog across the region, including at Lake Cumberland. But I guarantee above that, it's setting up to be a beautiful day. Temperatures out there, 50s and 60s. Yes, it is the 11th day of July, and places like Clintwood are at 51. Grundy's at 54, Jonesville's at 54, 58 Manchester, 57 Hazard, 57 Williamsburg. It's just, I don't know, it's just kind of a wild pattern here today. Your out-the-door forecast is going to feature again sunshine and lots of it after the fog lifts, and we're going to see temperatures that float back into the 80s this afternoon. The good news is, even though the air temperature will be warmer, the dew points will stay calm there. 6:45 your time. You're watching Mountain News This Morning right here on WYMT.